Hi everyone, it's Stephanie here and welcome back. In today's video, we are going to be creating these adorable little snowman treat tags and we're going to be using some new products. We have a bunch of new stuff that all works together to create these really cool Hershey nugget holders, and you can do all sorts of different themes with these. You can wrap the candies with different papers, so there are so many possibilities of ways that you can use this. So I have a few of the supplies in front of me here. I have the nugget pouches, which were created to specifically hold these Hershey nuggets. They are shaped to fit all three of these in here perfectly, and they don't shift or move at all. They just fit really nicely in there. And then we have some coordinating products that work with the pouches to create your little treat tags. So I used the treat tag die and I cut out 2 pink tags and 1 white tag. So we're going to use all of those to create our actual base for our candy treats. And then I'm also using the nugget label window and frame dynamic. So I have the window there that I already laid there on the tag. I have this little backer piece that you can use to create an opening on the back of the tag for your recipient to be able to open it and get the nuggets out. And then I also have the little label here. So this die here is intended to cut out pattern paper or some regular colored cardstock. The thinner the cardstock is going to work better because this is going to create the label that's going to wrap around the chocolates. Now for the purposes of our video today, we're going to create just white ones because we want them to look like snowmen. Now in addition to the main tag, there's also 2 toppers that you can use to die cut to dress up your tag when you're finished. So we're going to use the scallop one here, and I've die cut it from black cardstock and a piece of Sweet Stack 6x6 paper pad pattern paper. I have that little striped one there. And then lastly, I have my 3 labels that I've already cut out from some thin white cardstock, and that's what we're going to use to wrap our candies. Now, I'm going to create the snowman tag, and I wanted to show you one I've already created. So this is what I call the winter version. And you can see here that I used blue raspberry cardstock for the base instead of the pink. I used our Candyland pattern paper. You can see the opening there that you can die cut into the back, and the recipient can just kind of push their finger in there and then pull up on the perforations, and that's going to allow them to open it to get the candy out. And then I created a snowman with the Hershey Nuggets. Now we're going to create the exact same design for today's card, but I'm going to make it more of a Valentine snowman. So we're going to use pinks. We're going to use these really pretty that striped pattern paper. And you can see here the difference between the Candyland and the Sweet Stack. So the Candyland has a mix of green and pinks and blues, whereas the Sweet Stack is just kind of pinks, purples, and aquas. So I'm going to go ahead and start to assemble the tag here to show you how I created the snowman. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a snow hill that we can put into the background of our little scene here on the tag. So I used the Stitch Snowdrift Dynamics and I just cut a little bit off the top there, and now I'm going to adhere this onto the tag. Now you just want to make sure you don't put adhesive in the center area because we're going to die cut through there, and it just makes it a little bit easier to die cut through regular cardstock without adhesive on there. So I just put the adhesive around the outside edge and added that on, and now we're going to die cut the center area with that window. This is sized perfectly to fit the nugget pouches, so once I have this die cut, I know that that pouch is going to fit perfectly in there. So I'm just going to pop this out of here. We don't need that inside piece. And now you can see I have the nugget pouch and it just fits perfectly into that space. Now before we put the tag together, we need to put the backer onto this back piece, which is going to allow you to open it up to get the candy out. So I like to just put the tag right on top of the backer tag to line everything up. And then I just adhere the little backer piece with a piece of repositionable tape just to hold it in place so that I know that I'm die cutting it exactly where I need it to be. So now that I have that die cut, you can see that we get that little score detail on the side as well as the perforations and then the little opening there that you can use to pull up and open that to get the candy out. So now that we have that on there, we have the 2 pieces of the tag, the front and the back. So we can just do a little bit of quick stamping and then we're going to put this all together. Now I just wanted to have a subtle background with some snowflakes. So I'm just taking a snowflake stamp from the Warm and Feathered Hug stamp set, and I'm stamping this all over that pink area just with Versamark ink. If you use Versamark, it's kind of like a watermark ink, so it'll kind of absorb into the paper and you'll be able to see that design on the cardstock, but it stays tone on tone. Okay, now that we have the 2 tag parts ready, we just need to put our nugget pouch into the opening. So I'm using some 1/8 inch score tape and I'm adding it all the way around the back of this tag. So this isn't the front, this is what the area you're not going to see. And I'm just putting that all the way around that window opening. Once I have it on there, I'm going to go ahead and position it right over top of that nugget pouch and press down really firmly, and that's going to hold my nugget pouch in place. So now we have this ready to go and we can put our little candies in here before we assemble everything. So the last thing we need to do before we put the 2 tags together and have them all adhered is we need to wrap our little candy pieces because these need to be added into the pouch before we put the backer on. So to add the little labels to the candies, what I like to do is just take a piece of score tape and add it to the very top of the label. And then I'll remove the backing, and I'm just going to wrap this around the label and use that to secure it on. So I'm just going to kind of position it so I kind of have it in the center there. I'll wrap the end without the adhesive first, and then I'll bring the other end around and line it up so that we have it fully around the candy. And you can see here that it's perfectly sized to fit around this nugget, so you can quickly and easily make custom tags or labels for your candy when you are assembling your project. So I'm going to quickly do this with all 3 of these, and like I mentioned before, because this is going to be a snowman, I want to keep all of my candies white, so I'm not doing anything fancy with these. I'm just putting white cardstock around each of them. I'll put them into the pouch here, and then I'll flip this over and we can add the backer on. Now I did want to mention, to assemble my snowman, I'm gluing all of his face pieces onto the plastic on the outside, but if you prefer, you can absolutely do that to the candy piece first before you put it inside of the pouch. So it's completely optional if you want to decorate the candy or the actual plastic piece. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing I did with the blue one, which is just to put everything on the outside. So I'm going to keep the candies in there, and I'm going to go ahead and add the backer on there. Now to put the backer piece on, I use score tape once again, just because this is a really strong adhesive. I like to really cover this so that everything stays together really nicely. So I'm going to quickly remove all of the backer pieces here and then line this up, and it's going to fit perfectly over top. And we have our nugget pouch nicely secured in there, and we have our little backer piece on the back for the recipient to open it. So now that we have the tag assembled, the next thing that we need to do is get all of the pieces ready to create our snowman. So I have this little owl stamp here from the Warm and Feathered Hug stamp set, and I was going through my collection trying to find different pieces that would work to create a snowman image, and I found that the hat that this little guy is wearing is the perfect size to go onto the top of the nuggets, and it's actually going to work to create our scarf as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this out 3 times with extreme black ink onto Neenah Solar White cardstock, and then I'm taking my Copic markers and I'm coloring in just the hat on this first one, and then on the other 2 I'm just going to actually color the brim of the hat because we're going to cut it apart and use that to create the scarf. So I decided to go with colors that would kind of match the Sweet Stack paper pad that we're using. So I used aqua for the main part of the hat that's going to be the actual hat on the snowman, and then to add a little bit more color to this, I used some pink and some purple to color in the stripes. I'm also adding a little bit of gray to the top pom-pom on the hat part, and then I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and cut all of these out. Now since I'm just kind of using parts of them, I'm not using any coordinating dies. I'm just using my scissors and cutting along the stamped line. And I didn't show it on camera here, but I always like to take a black marker and go around the outside edges of anything that I cut out with scissors, just to kind of give it a really nice finished look and cover up the core of the white paper. So now I have all of these cut out and ready to go. The first thing I'm going to do is create my scarf. So I'm going to take one of the brims of the hat and I'm going to cut it right in half. And this is going to create the little pieces of the scarf that hang down. So I'm going to take some liquid glue to work with these since they are relatively small. And I'm going to first adhere these 2 pieces together to create the little V area that we're going to add underneath of the scarf. So I'm just adding some liquid glue to one end there and pressing them together. And then I'm going to use that same liquid glue and add a little bit more on top. And then I'm going to put the top piece of the scarf on there as well. And then once we have this finished, this is actually going to be perfectly wide enough to go across the snowman. And it's going to look like it was actually made to work with this. I love looking through all of my stamps and finding fun new ways to use some of the images, and this is by far one of my favorite for sure. It just perfectly fit, and I love that I was able to use it to create this fun design. I'm adding the snowman's hat with some score tape so that I know it's going to stay in place once we add it on there, and I'm just going to put that at the very top. You can see that there's a little bit of a slant in the nugget pouch, so when I put the hat on, it kind of tilts toward the back. So I just like to use my fingers and kind of give it a little bit of a bend so that it kind of goes straight up and down. Next up, we're going to add the scarf, and since there's a little bit of a divot there in between where the 2 nuggets go, I'm going to use some foam adhesive, and that's going to help to raise it up and make it level with the top of the pouch there. So I'm going to go ahead and position that, and now you can see, like I mentioned before, this is sized perfectly to fit right across this pouch. It looked like it was made for it. I absolutely love how it looks, and it's just a really fun way to dress this up and do something different with it. Okay, so next up we need to create some arms for our snowman. So to do this, I just have a snowflake that I die cut from the Filled with Joy Dynamics, and I'm just using a brown Copic marker and I'm coloring up the center of the snowflake. I'm then going to use my scissors and I'm going to trim off the 2 sides since we don't need all of those extra pieces, and I'm going to make sure to leave a little bit at the end of each of these little snowflake pieces so that it looks like actual sticks. Once I have it cut out on the sides, I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to cut this in half, and that's going to give me 2 arms that we can add to our snowman. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this is the part of the project that gets a little bit tedious because all of the little parts that we're gonna start adding to the snowman are super teeny tiny, so it's a little bit of a process to put everything on here. Now, I like to use matte multi-medium to stick everything on because it's a really strong adhesive and it dries matte, and especially because we're working on like a clear plasticky material, when stuff kind of gets adhered on here, it likes to slip and slide. So I like that it dries matte in case we have any glue kind of where we don't want it. So I put his arms on there first, and then I added a little heart that I die cut from one of the blueprint sets. I used a Copic marker, the same color I used on the hat, to color that in with some pink, and then I adhered that on there. And now I'm going to assemble his face. So for the face, I cut out pieces from the snowman head that's in the Filled with Joy Dynamics, the same one I used for the snowflake. And I'm going to use the nose and color that in with a Copic marker. And then I am actually going to take all of these little circles that create the mouth and the eyes, and I'm going to stick all of these on one by one. Now, if you want to save some time and not go through all of these steps, you could definitely use like some jewels or something to create the snowman's eyes. You could leave the mouth off completely if you don't want to add that. So there are other ways that you could decorate this if you wanted to. Or like I mentioned before, you can actually decorate the candy before you put it into the pouch, and that would probably be a little bit easier as well. But I really like the dimension of having the pieces adhered on the outside of the plastic. So the first thing I did is I just put the little nose in place. It's not actually adhered there. I just wanted to know where it was going to be positioned so I could easily add the eyes and the mouth. So I just kind of used tweezers and dipped them into the matte multi-medium, and then I just get them in place and then very carefully press down with my fingers. Now for the mouth, I kind of liked that where there was just one little circle, but I decided to go ahead and add the rest on as well. So I put the center one first just to kind of get it positioned properly, and then I used the tweezers to once again add each of those into the glue and then position them onto the plastic. The last thing I'm going to do is just add the nose, so I'm going to just put that into that same glue, and then I'll push that on there with my tweezers as well, and then we have completed the little snowman's face. Okay, we are at the home stretch now of creating our tag. We have our snowman all finished, so all we need to do now is finish the tag portion. So I'm taking the two tag topper pieces that I die cut and I'm adhering them together and kind of offsetting them so we have a little bit of that black showing through. And then I'm going to position this right on the top of our tag. I didn't add any ribbon or string to the top of these tags, but you definitely can if you want. And then the last thing we need to do is add a sentiment. So for that, I'm going to use the Sweet Celebration stamp set, which was actually designed to fit perfectly onto this treat tag. And I stamped that onto some black cardstock and heat embossed it with white embossing powder. And then I cut it out with a banner from the Hearts in a Row Vertical Dynamics. And now I'm just going to add it to the very bottom of the tag with some dimensional adhesive. Since we have so much dimension with the nugget pouches, I thought it would look cool to have this one kind of raised as well. And then once we have that done, we have finished our cute little snowman nugget treat. And now I have both of them here on screen so you can see the two differences with the color change. So just by simply changing the cardstock and the pattern paper, one of them looks a little bit more wintry and one of them looks a little bit more Valentine's. I also kind of think the Valentine's one looks more girly and the winter one looks kind of more like a boy. So you can kind of play around with the different papers and colors to really change up the look. So I hope you got some ideas on some ways that you can use the new nugget pouches and the treat tag and the nugget window shaker and frame. There's so many fun things that you can do with these products and we can't wait to see what you guys create. As always, I appreciate you joining me in today's video and I will see you in another one soon. Thanks for watching.